All right, welcome back. We are on strategy 4 of TABE Language M. This one will be on punctuation, specifically today, commas. A lot of different uses for commas within sentences. And of course, make sure that you have your book with you. We're in TABE Language M, and today we're going to be starting on page 20. And again, open the scan. If you don't have a paper copy of the book, go to the Files section here in Canvas and look for the folder that says TABE Language M Pages and open Strategy 4. Okay, let's just dive into it. So use correct punctuation. And as I said, this lesson today is about commas. A lot of different uses for those. A comma indicates a break in the structure of a sentence. It identifies a pause that helps readers understand the meaning. A comma is used in several situations. Before a coordinating conjunction to separate complete thoughts in a compound sentence. This is something we've kind of hinted at in our talk about sentence structure. But if we're bringing two independent thought clauses which express complete thoughts together, one way to punctuate them is with a comma and coordinating conjunction. And those are the fanboys: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. You'll see examples of those used in the sentences that we're going to take a look at. But knowing when you're bringing independent clauses together, in other words, grammatical units that have a subject-verb relationship, but both express complete thoughts, bringing them together requires some punctuation. And one of the ways to do that is with a comma and coordinating conjunction, which you'll see in the example. Okay, between items in a series, a list that appears in sentence, probably the first use of commas that you ever learned, actually. After introductory elements, so a phrase that opens a sentence or a clause that opens a sentence that requires a pause before moving on to the rest of the sentence. And then to set off words and phrases that interrupt a thought, we looked at inessential versus essential information in some previous lessons. So that's what they're talking about, that we set off information that is inessential to the meaning of the sentence with commas. All right, let's look at the chart here. So before a coordinating conjunction to separate independent clauses, okay, so we have two independent clauses here. I wanted to buy an umbrella and I went to the store. Both have a subject, both have a verb that links back to that subject. But notice here we have a comma and the conjunction so to link the two together. The meaning of this one is that the going to the store happened as a result of the wanting to buy an umbrella. So shows the effect of a particular cause. Okay, placing commas between items in a series. The recipe includes sugar, flour, water, and oil. Make sure that the second to the last thing in the list that precedes the and also has a comma after it. Sometimes in writing you may see it written without this last comma, which is called the Oxford comma, but certainly for the purposes of the TABE and GED, they want you to use the Oxford comma, the one that comes after the second to last word, just because it helps achieve a lot more clarity in writing. While it's not a rule, it is a strong suggestion, and most standardized testing programs, whether it's GED, TABE, ACT, want you to observe the Oxford comma like it's used here. Okay. A comma after introductory elements, an introductory phrase or clause. If you want to arrive on time, we need to leave now. So this was an introductory clause. The subject, you. The verb is want, but it introduces the rest of the sentence. The second part, we need to leave now, is dependent on this if statement that is in the introductory elements. If it was a phrase, it would be the same way. Something like, to arrive on time, comma, we need to leave now. And that example, I didn't have a subject, but nevertheless, it was an introductory element to the sentence that required a comma afterwards. And then when we're setting off words that interrupt a thought, like an interjection or the answer to a question or a person's name as we're getting their attention at the beginning of a sentence. yes, no, to indicate an answer. We put a comma after that one word and then go on to elaborate with the rest of the sentence. Also, we use it to tag quotations, which we'll see here in a minute on the second page. And here in the chart, we have 3 of the 7 fanboys, the 3 most common of the coordinated conjunctions. And these are used to combine independent clauses in these examples, but they have a little bit different meaning. If the 2 independent clauses work together in agreement, so it's kind of like added information, we use and. It's a beautiful day, and we're going on a picnic. Those things are sort of dependent upon each other or in agreement with one another. But the coordinated conjunction but shows disagreement. The independent clauses are working together to achieve a meaning, but it is a meaning that's in disagreement or opposition. I want to go on a picnic, but it is raining. So this wanting to go on a picnic and the state of it being raining and preventing going on a picnic sit in disagreement or opposition with one another. And then the one so it demonstrates cause and effect, that one clause is the result of another. It's a beautiful day, so I'm going on a picnic. I'm going on a picnic is happening because it's a beautiful day. The beautiful day is the cause of this desire to go on a picnic, and that's why we use the coordinated conjunction so. But notice in all these examples we have a comma that precedes the coordinated conjunction. Right, here our example looks like we have a but coordinated conjunction. Mateo likes peanut butter sandwiches, but opposition, disagreement. Joel has a peanut allergy. So those 2 truths lie in opposition to one another or in disagreement with one another. Okay, moving past the practice to hit the last of the instructional slides. Okay, some more uses of commas, and this is when we're using them to help punctuate quotations. So use commas and quotation marks to mark direct speech and quotations from a text. A direct quote is a report of the exact words an author or speaker used. A signal phrase such as he said is commonly used before or after a direct quote. So, we're using the comma to separate the signal phrase from the quote itself. So in our first example, place a comma after the signal phrase if the signal phrase is before the quotation. All right, so here we have Henry Wadsworth Longfellow said. There's our signal phrase that appeared at the beginning. And then a comma, and then the quote itself in quotation marks. You note that the period goes in there. We retain the punctuation of the quote as it was originally written. If it were a question or an exclamation, we'd have a question mark or an exclamation point there. But do note that whatever the punctuation is, it goes inside the quote here, but certainly we have a comma at the end of the signal phrase here. Okay, place a comma at the end of the quotation before the quote mark if the signal phrase follows the quotation. So here we have the opposite situation. Said Robert Frost. The comma here goes inside the quotation marks. Unlike if the signal phrase was first here, it came outside of. Well, it is inside in this particular case. If it had been a question or an exclamation, we would put that mark there. The period only replaces the comma. All right, the comma replaces the period. All right, what if we have it in the middle? Sometimes we do, and then we do kind of a combination of all of them. So the quote begins here with besides. We have the comma, and then we close the quotation marks. Then we have the signal phrase, Jolie commented. But as the quote continues on, we need an additional comma to separate the signal phrase from the quote itself. Because the sentence has already started, we don't need to capitalize this we like we did up here when the sentence was beginning with this quote, because it began here. And then, of course, we just finish out the sentence with whatever punctuation goes with the quote, and then we close the quotation marks. All right, so definitely as you work through the examples, look at as you work through the practice, look at these examples to help you out. If you have the signal phrase at the beginning, end, or middle, these examples tell you what to do specifically in detail. Just kind of follow the example that they've set out here, and you'll be fine. All right, let's look at these two. So, have a nice day. The cashier called is one left. So looks like we have the correct comma here. The quote is in quotation marks. The signal phrase continues. But we've got something a little more complex in our second example. In a speech he gave to the Second Virginia Convention on March 23rd, 1777, Patrick Henry said, it's a pretty long signal phrase, but we end it just like it would be if it was really short. And then the comma, and then the quotation itself. Capitalized because it's the beginning of the sentence. Give me liberty or give me death. And of course, we're retaining the exclamation point that's part of the actual quote from history. Okay, move on and do the rest of the work. Come back here after you're finished and we'll go over both pages in great detail. I'll see you in a few minutes.